What's up guys, welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
Members of Xian's elite guard weren't about to miss that chance, and now the Imperials were being pushed back at breakneck speed. Even the Empire's troops, desperate and running on pure adrenaline, were no match for them. The two sides were more or less evenly matched in terms of individual combat ability, but one side was far better trained than the other, and in terms of skill level, the elite guard had a clear upper hand. What kind of training did it take to make this happen? Somewhere along the line, Xian's troops had transformed into an amazingly well-honed, specialized combat force. As Xian was making a name for herself on the right wing, the Imperial army was facing even more trouble on its own right side.
No! Why are they here? The Beastmaster's Warrior Alliance? No! I don't want to die!
The Beastmaster's Warrior Alliance troops were serving as reinforcements, alongside the other magic-born who served Carolon. They all owed Rimuru a great favor, and now they were exercising their full powers to pay it back.
That's one hell of a monster.
It is.
Zal, the elephant beastman, wholeheartedly agreed with Alvis's muttered remark. A magic spell like none they had seen or heard of before was deploying before their eyes. An ominous pillar, connecting heaven and earth, had just reduced more than 100,000 Imperial troops to dust. Even now, its violent fury was battering the landscape, never diminishing. With that blow, victory was now assured. The only remaining question was whether the enemy had any true champions left hiding in their ranks. They wanted to know, and that was why they refused to let the enemy escape in this fight. Alvis, fully aware of how open-hearted and generous Rimuru could usually be, was honestly shocked at how thorough they were with this policy, but at the same time, she believed this was how a demon lord should act.
Well, we rolled in with 20,000 troops, and it looks like they're overwhelming them anyway. We can't exactly call it paying him back if it's going to be like this,
said Alvis.
As if we could ever repay him in any true sense.
True enough. Well, we shouldn't sadden Sir Rimuru, at least. Dying here is out of the question. Do everything in your power to ensure nobody's hurt.
You heard him, everyone. Take your pride serving the Beastmaster, and do everything you can until the bitter end.
The Beastmaster's Warrior Alliance answered Zol's roar with one of their own. Not a moment later, the Beastfolk began their march on the Imperial army's right flank. By this point, the trend was abundantly clear. Magic was rampaging across the rear, and they were being overrun on their left and right sides. The Imperial army had little option left, apart from waiting for their foes to surround and exterminate them. Momiji eyed the situation, her eyes cold. Her head was calm, but her heart was burning fiercely.
It's about time now. Allow me to ignite flames of compassion to relieve our enemies from their suffering.
With that whisper, she sent a signal to Gabwa. The moment she did, the 4th Army Corps breathed in unison, summoning their mystic force. The order cascaded across Team Kurenai via Gabwa's thought communication, and as if in response, the mystic force created by everyone streamed across the army, harmonized in beautiful fashion. It was Momiji's job to give all this power a conduit.
Are you sure this will work?
A slightly worried-looking Gabwa asked. Momiji laughed the idea off.
If I'm to be Sir Benimaru's wife, how could I not be capable of this much?
There was an unshakable confidence in her attitude. Her plan, in essence, was to gather this mystic force into a single presence, then lob it straight at the enemy army. It was a simple, unadorned strategy, but if she failed to unify that force correctly, it might trigger an unintended explosion that could damage Geld's force on the front line. Gabwa's unease was natural, but in the face of Momiji's confidence, she commented on it no further. Momiji had been entrusted with this army as Benimaru's substitute, and to doubt her would be the same as doubting Benimaru.
All right. I'll leave that to you, then. Are you ready to begin? Yes. This won't be as powerful as the vicious magic Carrera cast, but it should be enough for the remaining forces. I'm going to finish this with one blow.
Then Momiji's once-in-a-lifetime mystic spell made its debut.
Let us bloom a red lotus that softly, gently envelops our enemy. Mystic Crimson Heaven.
It was a red flower blooming in the sky. Its first objective was to rapidly burn through oxygen, draining it from the air at ground level and leaving the enemy incapacitated. The second objective was to rain down the flames of compassion, its temperature high enough to render targets unconscious before it could inflict pain. The third objective was to ferret out the strongest among their forces. If anyone could withstand this attack, they'd have been classified as strong, naturally, making this mystic art a great way to weed out the time wasters. So the blooming flower fell upon the battlefield, and at the end of it, nobody was left alive.
Oh, well, that's a letdown. It was to be expected, perhaps. The last group to enter the labyrinth was far more powerful than any before it. They might have been the best elites the Empire had to offer.
Seems like it. Now all we have left is the enemy's command HQ.
I'm sure that's been taken care of by now. Besides.
Oh, right. Carrera's servant was heading over there, wasn't he? And I'm certain nobody at the HQ could be a match for him.
Calgario had received a stream of desperate reports. He really didn't need them. The catastrophe was happening right before his eyes, and the only silver lining was that, since it happened so fast, they were able to die without feeling any fear or regret. Meanwhile, the survivors of that fearsome magic had fled back to the main camp with terror in their eyes. Having experienced the soul-crushing horror firsthand, they lost all trust in the Empire, cursing their own foolishness. There was no time for fancy speeches as the staff officers shouted for retreat, but at this point, survival was impossible. How did this happen? Should I have chosen enslavement instead? No, where did I even go wrong in the first place? He tried his hardest to cease his looping thoughts but failed. Once again, he looked out at the desperate battlefield, considering whatever possible strategies he could take by now. There was nothing, no saving grace that he could ever come up with at this moment. And more to the point.
No, what's that? What's that?
Calgario was tossed into a crucible of fear and confusion. Magic that heinous was beyond what he was capable of understanding. How could you take tens of thousands of soldiers protected by layer and layer of anti-magic resistance and kill them all like you'd squash an anthill? Nearly 200,000 troops were utterly destroyed with just one blow, and it'd only be a matter of time before the rest were wiped out.
Maybe.
Maybe what?
It's still a theoretical magic spell, but I know about one that interacts with the gravity of the planet. It's likely the most devastating magic in the nuclear family, but it requires an enormous amount of energy to activate, and every step requires exacting control.
Gadra told me about it once. Gravity collapse, right?
Yes, Calgario had heard about it. It was a spell that was still under research, merely a theory at this point in time. No example of it had ever been observed before, and even with otherworldly knowledge, research was at a standstill even in the theoretical phase. This tactical-level magic had the power to annihilate entire nations, not just battlefields. But as far as Calgario knew, they had concluded that it'd be impossible to ever conjure it in real life. But here it was, executed in perfect fashion, by a single monster. Now the term Demon Lord struck Calgario's brain with a palpable sense of fear. Have we meddled with someone who we never should have meddled with? He asked himself.
I admire your knowledge, sir.
The matter-of-fact tone of one of his staff officers brought him back to reality.
But it's theoretical.
He shouted back in frustration.
We were boasting about how we could slaughter Veldora if we made it work.
Indeed, sir. That's how powerful that magic is. It's practically limitless.
At some point, the staff officers had polarized into two separate camps.
It was from a monster? Just one of them could perform a magic that massive?
Some were in a state of panic.
Astounding. I'll write a research paper on this when I get home. Now we, too, can get our hands on that spell.
And some were babbling at each other like madmen. One side had lost the will to fight, the other had lost their grip on reality. At this point, the Empire's command HQ was no longer functional. Nothing in the world could be done in the midst of these horrifying circumstances. But nonetheless, Calgario was in command. He was responsible for the lives of what soldiers he had left. Throwing in the towel was the one thing he could never do. But the situation was no longer conducive to ordering a retreat. Counting the crazed troops who fled the front lines, there were less than 2,000 men and women left in the main camp. They were chaotic, disorderly, and even if they somehow made it out of there, they were all doomed to be slaughtered. Power. Power was the one thing Calgario wished for right now. If you have power, all is forgiven, the iron rule the Empire always stuck to. Only through the overwhelming power they had was it possible for them to subjugate the whole world. But if you didn't have power, you were doomed to face a tragic end, something that was obvious, given Calgario's current situation. As one of the three commanders at the top of the Empire, he was proud to be one of the world's great power brokers, but now he finally realized it was all an illusion. I can't believe how powerless I really was. How incompetent. How weak. I had no idea I was such a miserable peon, constantly being exploited. He couldn't help but lament his fate. Fortune, fame, and everything that came with them were worthless in his current circumstances. When you got into serious trouble, there were far more important things you needed at hand.
I wish I had power.
Large tears spilled from Calgario's eyes. Nearly 1 million soldiers, people who believed in the glory of the Empire and the commander who led them, were dead. The impact of this undeniable truth was devastating him.
Reporting, sir. A huge flame was observed in the sky above the battlefield. Based on the amount of heat it generated, we believe the chances that anyone on the ground survived it are hopeless.
It's over.
Calgario's first officer muttered.
The Empire's been completely defeated.
The rest of the staff fell silent. Even the ones trying to escape reality a moment ago were stunned, as if waking up from a dream. They tried to face the reality that awaited them, but their brains refused to accept it.
Let's offer our surrender. Whether they'll accept it is a gamble, but there's a chance they'll find us useful. At this rate, we're all going to be killed anyway. I think it's our only chance for survival, but what do you think?
Better to be enslaved than dead. That was the thought behind this officer's proposal, although he worried it was coming far too late. Nonetheless, Calgario decided to accept the offer.
Right, yes, it may be pointless, but let's try to negotiate. At the very least, if we can turn the enemy's attention toward us, that'll give Misha and her comrades a better chance at escaping.
Even if this battle ended with them all dying, their defeat would still have meaning if the Empire received the information they learned. That thought alone made Calgario reluctantly agree. It was uncharacteristically modest of him, but his heart had long since been shattered. Admittedly, thanks to this, he was able to think once more about the best course of action in this situation. If he had gained this state of mind earlier, it would have made him a master general for the ages, no doubt. It took him fully abandoning his greed and vanity to accomplish, but at long last, Calgario had regained his original, latent intelligence. But the decision came far too late. Any hope for Calgario and his staff had long since disappeared.
Surrender? Ooh, we can't have that now, can we? I'm afraid you'll have to deal with me for a few moments.
Diablo, who had actually been in the tent for some time now, was dressed in his usual butler's uniform, a smile on his handsome face. The moment he saw the demon, Calgario realized the sheer difference in power between them. Now that he had regained his calm judgment skills, he wasn't going to throw away his life for the sake of trivial pride. Negotiation came first now, so he had his guards lower their swords. That was undoubtedly the right thing to do. Any attempts at a fight were futile. Out the corner of his eye, Calgario spotted Krishna, cowering and intoning, I can't, over and over. Just like the commander, he must have immediately recognized the overwhelming difference in strength.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shout out to the new members of AnimeKouhai supporters: Tank Bailey, Gareth Hashimoto, Zach Rosson, Byron, Ankit Kumar, SPT Mighty, Canon McClanahan, Steven Madison, Micah Stern, Kim Man. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.